And this, our final fireside chat, is about financing for climate solutions. Now, we want to know what those opportunities are. And we want to understand how persons can access these opportunities for financing. And we want to be able to identify some of the things that may stand in the way so that we can figure out how to mitigate those barriers. So, with us is the program manager for the DBJ, Roxanne Valentine Donegan. Welcome, welcome, welcome. And also from the Jamaica Environment Entrepreneurs Advocacy Network. That's a mouthful. Adrian Watson, Executive Director. We want to start with you, Madame Valentine Donegan. Can you give us an idea? Well, introduce yourself. What does your role at the DBJ mean? And give us an idea about how the DBJ is involved in financing for climate solutions. Just a summary.
No problem. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm happy to be here to share with you what DBJ is offering in the climate space. I'm Roxanne Valentine Donegan. I'm the program manager responsible for the development of this climate financing mechanism called the Blue-Green Facility that will be rolling out soon at the DBJ. And my background is also in climate change and environmental and social management.
So you're coming at the right time, because I remember hearing about this facility from the panelists who spoke just before you. We're looking forward to the possibilities with that. I want to know what programs you currently have that help small businesses, local stakeholders finance their climate solutions.
Okay, so the DBJ is focused on the MSME sector, as we recognize that MSMEs are the drivers of growth in Jamaica. So what we have now at the DBJ, we offer energy loans to the MSMEs, small and medium-sized enterprises, that they can access up to 40 million Jamaican dollars at interest rate up to 11.5%. And these are distributed through our accredited financial institutions, such as the commercial banks and the microfinance institutions. But of course, we cannot leave out the homeowners. We also have residential loans where persons can access up to 5 million Jamaican dollars for their alternative energy solutions at an interest rate of 9.5%. And this, again, is distributed through our accredited financial institutions.
Okay, I'm liking the sound, particularly of that last one. What do I need as a homeowner to access that financing? And what would I need as a small business owner to do the same?
So we start with the small business owners. You need to be registered. You'd have to have proof of registration. You also need to have your tax compliance certificate in place. You also need to be up to date with your financials, and you also need to have a business account. For the residential purposes, persons would need to show proof of income, proof of address, and of course you'd have to have your financials in place. And these are what are normally required by the financial institutions.
This sounds good. And persons would go to the financial institutions to find out more, or call the DBJ?
They can call the DBJ at 929-4000, or you can access our website and our social media pages.
Thank you for that. Now, we're going to move to where you started. You are now, as an entity, accredited to the Green Climate Fund, and you're developing this Blue-Green Facility. What does that mean, this accreditation? Is it just a paper process? What does it mean, and how will it help us with our climate solutions?
Let me tell you, this accreditation is a big deal. The DBJ realized that Jamaica is in need of climate finance. So we approached GCF. It was a long process, but it was worth it. We are now able to access over 250 million US dollars for climate action in Jamaica. And must I say, this is the largest accreditation in the Caribbean. I mean, everybody is so proud and everybody is ready and willing to collaborate with the DBJ. Now, with this accreditation, we're hoping to access a $500 million facility. Let that sink in, 500 million Jamaican dollars. The GCF will be provided 200 million, but we are trying to raise 300 million through our international development partners and our private sector. So this Blue-Green Facility will be used as a means of crowding in the private sector, because we realize that the Jamaican government cannot do it alone. And as you can see, we are always trying to build back from the different climate events, different climate disasters. So we're trying to crowd in the private sector. We'll be offering green loans, we'll be offering grants, we'll be offering grants to help persons to develop climate projects. And the biggest part of it is what we call equity financing, where we'll crowd in the private sector or investors that are interested in climate action and moving the needle in Jamaica on climate action. We'll be crowding those investors in to help us to mitigate against the effects of climate change, to adapt, and also to address damage and loss and damage in Jamaica.
I love the concept or the phrasing, it's a big deal.
It's a big deal.
A lot of what you are speaking about, the things that the DBJ can do, is involved in, are things that are for, well, the adults, the generation that is now living and working, etc. An event like this has mostly students. Why was it important for the DBJ to be a part of this event today, our Climate Action Conference and Expo?
Well, the DBJ has been involved with schools, the educational institution, and other programs that we have implemented. And as you know, the students, the children are the future. So we do believe that we must engage the youth to ensure that the climate action is rolled out, to get them involved, to get them engaged, and to get them interested in climate action. Because at the end of the day, whatever happens will be up to them. It will be affecting them. So we believe that to engage them at this point will help us in actually moving the needle on climate action.
Yeah, the responsible management that we are going to be needing. Thank you so much,
You're welcome.
Madame Roxanne Valentine Donegan. We're now moving to the gentleman who is representing, let me get it right, Jamaica Environment Entrepreneurs Advocacy Network. Adrian Watson, can you tell us what that is, please, sir? What you do as Executive Director?
So basically my job is to design programs for not only the older folks but younger folks in terms of getting into the climate and environmental space and how they can become entrepreneurs in their own right. So we serve as a platform, being a network. And so one of the ways in which we do this, a couple of years ago we had our inaugural Unleash Caribbean Hack, where we had over 30 persons participating in that hackathon. We had 5 winners, and we were able to source some grant funding from the U.S. Embassy Public Affairs section to give them anywhere between $1,400 to a basic $1,000 to build out a prototype, because I struggled starting on my own business, and I couldn't find any funding. And so I partnered with Unleash in Denmark to put that together with the financing from the U.S. Embassy, because I had some contacts there.
Okay, so I'm happy you've been able to share your experience in trying to access funding. What are some of the barriers? You said it was difficult, but what are some of the specific barriers that you faced in that effort to find funding?
So most persons want, like the DBJ, would want to probably have a group of persons to apply for those programs. Same thing I faced with like applying to the EFJ. So coming in as a solo entrepreneur, you're not going to get much traction because you're coming in alone. What I find though is that sometimes that's unsustainable, because sometimes the driving force behind of it, you try and pull different persons together, but they're only there for the hype of it. And sometimes all of the work is left on that same individual who has the passion for it. For me, I had to apply for different fellowship programs to get microgrants in and provide a proof of concept before anybody would look at me. And that took me a good decade out of my life to actually bring to proof of concept. Then when you get to proof of concept, you still have to prove and provide 2 years worth of audited financial statements. You have to still get registered. Those things are still important, but if you don't have that community, an ideation workshop that holds your hand and bring you through the process, it's very hard, right? And sometimes you don't have the grouping around you. You don't have the critical mass, even though the idea is a good one.
And these difficulties that you are describing, many of them are because, well, you didn't know. You're not an experienced business person coming into the space. So what can funders like DBJ and EFJ consider or try in order to make climate financing more accessible to the average Jamaican entrepreneur?
So we have a lot of incubator spaces out. Yes, they're there. And we have a lot of accelerator spaces out there as well. The challenge is a lot of them don't build the community around you. And a lot of persons, so a lot of entrepreneurs that benefited from even the Unleash hack, they're solo entrepreneurs that when they applied, we were able to connect them to a community that helped them build their projects. Keys Farms is one of them, right? And I'm so happy for them because they went to Dubai and won additional funding. So if we can build an incubator space in the same way that we build communities, to basically handhold them through the process, you'll find that more businesses will become more profitable. I was a part of the YLI program, and that's what they did for me. They built a community around me, and I was able to then leverage some of those contacts to get some of the technical expertise that I'd have had to pay millions of US dollars for.
Wow.
That I can't afford.
Well, I understood. And Keys Farms is the seaweed farming, is it?
Yes, they were one of our beneficiaries.
Yes, the seaweed farming in, is it Boscobel?
Yeah, I think they moved to Boscobel or Rockabessa, and they were with the Alligator Head Foundation in the initial stages.
And I'm now paying attention because here we have an effort that may not have had the experience and so on at the start, but with support was able to build and grow and develop, and it's now, I'm sure, something that the DBJ and the other funders are proud of. You're listening to this. What are some of the things that you would like to offer, or some of the items of advice that you'd like to offer to young entrepreneurs that are seeing this space from that perspective?
Well, I believe that first they should be in these spaces to hear some of the experience that he would have gone through. And for the DBJ, we will be offering grants to help to build these types of ideas and to get to the next stage. We have been doing that through what we call the Big E program, but we plan to expand that type of program. And under the Blue Green facility, this is something that we're looking at. There's a special part of the facility that will be focusing on community-based activities, and we believe organizations such as his will be able to benefit from those types of funding.
And we understand and we see what the DBJ is doing, and that's fantastic. What we're asking for is, what is your advice? What can they do differently to help them move through this process more smoothly?
Well, we believe, though, that we'd like to see something different and something that we would consider impactful. So that, I think, for example, Key Farms, we do believe that was a little bit different, and they were able to access funding from the DBJ. So the DBJ actually looks for innovative type projects and those that are more impactful with regards to adaptation and mitigation for the climate space.
We're happy to hear that, and I want to flip it now. Because you were in that space, what is your advice to others like you?
Perseverance. Perseverance is a hell of a thing. I would say, first of all, map out your ideas. You may have several ideas out there that you have. Map out the top 5 that you're interested in. Start with something close to the skill set area that you have. And I know as a trained scientist, it's easier for me to say that. Because I started out in the beekeeping space. But write down the ideas, build them out, look at start with the ones that you have the skill set area in first, and then drill it out. But keep it concise, focus it, hone it. Define, and if you're going after an innovations grant program, define which aspect of it is innovative. And I'll give a very quick example. So I'm a beekeeper, right? And no one would think there's anything innovative about beekeeping. So I was able to grapple onto the open source beehives, open license design for a new design. So I can't necessarily patent that. But one of the things that they were not able to do is to bring it to a commercial standard. So what I did was I figured out what the unit economic cost was to build those hives down to the very dollar. So my business process was the innovation, not because I can't claim the design. It's not patentable to me. So the process of making sure that to build onto somebody else's innovation by looking at the supply chain in terms of how to build the hive and then bring it to market, which is what they were not able to do. So the only thing that they were able to do with it previously is use it as a free fundraiser to bring monies in for another beekeeping monitoring system. So innovation isn't always, you have to build something. And that's one of the other, right. So, and that's one of the other challenges I realize. Most persons want you to have patents. It's not always about patent, it's what you can do with it, yes. Right? And I would say perseverance is why I'm here this up.
And must I add, Paula, we'd like to also see the sustainability of the projects. The DBJ is interested to see what will happen after you've moved from a particular stage. So if you have started as a micro business, we'd like to see the sustainability aspect of it, where you can move from micro to small to medium-sized enterprises.
So I love the concept that it doesn't have to be the idea you came up with, that you built, but it is about, to use the cliche, thinking outside the box, around the box. How can I use it differently even if I didn't come up with it in the first place? So innovation has room for new ways of looking at things, and therefore many other ways of accessing the funding coming out of the DBJ. Now, we have our social media question. What do you think what do you think is the major gap between the ordinary Jamaican and the DBJ and organizations like you?
Could you repeat, please?
What do you think is the major gap between the ordinary Jamaican, somebody who might think that, well, me can't get a loan there, or what do you think is that gap, and how do we get around that?
I'm thinking, well, my opinion, I think the average Jamaican needs to understand more the business concept. So it's not just to say, yes, we're going to start a business, but you don't have a plan and you don't know how it is you're going to move to the next stage. And what we've noticed at the DBJ, we have actually come up with what we call the Gemini program, a hand-holding program, because we have to tell persons, you must get a business account. You must put your financials in order. You must have a business plan. You need to show these things, financial plans, before you can access certain type of funding. And as I mentioned before, we do not give direct funding to the MSME sector. We work through our accredited financial institutions, and these are the things that they would ask for. So in my opinion, that is what would be the gap, but we are also trying to fill that gap through the different programs that we offer, including the Gemini program.
I love the sound of the Gemini. Just very quickly, give us a little bit more detail about that. It's for those of us that don't have any business knowledge, you're teaching us how to do it.
So
is that something that you participated in?
Definitely, I would be interested in accessing. So tell me, as Jean, as the executive director of Gene, as the CEO of Honeybees April, which is a social enterprise, beekeeping social enterprise, how can I get access and still maintain my tax thing, because that's a part of the capacity building that needs to happen?
Well, so we partner with the JBDC in rolling out the Gemini program, and you can get more information by contacting my colleagues. But just to say, though, it assists businesses, social enterprises as well, in developing business plans, in putting their financials in order, and actually matching you with a financial institution to go through the requirements and to eventually access funding. And again, we work with the JBDC in implementing this program.
And the JBDC is renowned for helping businesses through that process. So I understand now when you say Gemini is a part of what they're doing. I'm coming back to you, Adrian. What do you think the gap is?
You don't know what you don't know. So coming to expos like these, come with questions prepared, but come with trying to find out how we can access. So a lot of the gaps for me is, all right, I'm a scientist, I'm a trained scientist. I'm not a trained business person, so what I would need to know is, all right, how do I get registered? How do I become tax compliant? Which is still something that I have as a part of my knowledge gap to this day, right? Because, hey, if I get registered, how do I maintain with my compliance? So a lot of persons are even hiding out from the TAJ because, hey, they're making it look like I try to run from paying my taxes. When really and truly, I can tell you, most entrepreneurs do not know how to file. We don't know even how to fill out that thing. And if we're not making any money, can we file a nil return? How do we still file? Because the government is going to assume that we're making money because we're registered.
Not always.
Not always.
Let me just jump in and say not always. And I'm sure, now that you call JBDC name, I am sure that they provide that kind of knowledge and guidance. They have the experience based on what I've heard that will help you to jump over any such assumption. Put you through. So you are saying that the gap for you is also, that is also a major gap for you.
Yeah, knowledge gap, the knowledge of how to access these programs.
Business skills.
Business skills. Then there is the access to the relevant government services in terms of knowing how to file, knowing how to get registered, knowing how to even approach a banking institution to open a bank account, learning how to put together a proper accounting system, because most of we have our receipts all over the place. We even lose a couple of, should I say that out loud? So keeping track of your finances, right? And the reason why I went this route is that for me and how I learn, it's easier to learn the science skills because of how I learn. I'm a visual and hands-on person. So I said, you know what, let me go and learn the technical skills. But what gets left behind for a scientist and creatives, the creative industry as well, is that we leave the business skills behind, which we need a Gemini program for. But then if you're just starting with an idea, we still need that nurturing.
The guidance to put you on that proper path.
Be my parent.
All right. We are learning, and I'm sure we are learning from each other, and we're going to use this knowledge to help fill those gaps that have been identified. Certainly, there's a knowledge gap that has been filled by this discussion, and we want to thank you so much for helping to facilitate the exchange of knowledge, of information in this, our final fireside chat or panel discussion, and helping those of us listening and here to understand financing for climate solutions. Ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause, please. Roxanne Valentine Donegan and Adrian Watson.